Aí, se tiver algumas perguntas, alguma coisa, você fica de mediador aí, por favor, que eu tô com o monitor só, cara. Eita porra.
Opa,
se tiver algum tipo de pergunta aí, você fala, porque eu não tô vendo, que eu tô com o monitor só, beleza?
Tranquilo.
Nossa, cara, tá um eco do caramba seu aí.
Deixa eu deixar o celular aqui. Eu acho que tem algum áudio aí dando. Somente tá.
Eu acho que eu acho que é o áudio da sua live aí. Tenta desabilitar o áudio da live aberta.
Beleza. Tá me ouvindo bem agora, né? Aí, consegue me ouvir?
Sim, tá tudo certo agora.
O som tá bom aí pra você?
Agora tá excelente. Tá sem eco, tudo.
Show de bola. Boa noite, pessoal. Tudo bem? Segundo dia do MSP Tech Days. A live, ela, como todas as outras, serão em inglês, tá? Então, vou dar só uma saudação aí. Buenas noches. Good evening. Hello, guys. How is going? Today's second day about MSP Tech Days, about development topics. Today with us, my good friend aí, since the MSP program, Carneiro from Brazil, MVP also. My name is Jairo Rodrigues. I'm Microsoft MVP, Azure MVP, and MSP since 2012. And with you, please.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, good, nice.
Yeah, let me turn on my camera. Can you see me also?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Rogério. So guys, hello. My name is Carneiro. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Developer Technologies in Brazil, and it's a great pleasure to be here, talk to you. I'm gonna have a presentation today. I'll give you some details. And I was also a Microsoft student partner in 2012. That was a very nice year, but unfortunately, I am no longer an MSP, and I'm part of MVP program right now. So let me share my screen. So let's get started. If you guys have any questions, just write us, and I think that Rogério will be reading, and then he can ask me, so I can stop talking and reply to you right away. Okay, so thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Just a second, please. Okay, can you see my screen, Rogério? Just check, please.
Yes.
All right, so let's get started. Once again, as I was saying, thank you so much for this invitation. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, so all I can say is buenas noches or buenos dias. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. This is the second day of MSP Tech Days for Latin America 2019. And my name is Carneiro. Actually, the pronunciation is Ray, but in Brazil we say Rai. And I'm a Microsoft MVP, as I said, for developer tech, and I'm also there's my Twitter, my GitHub account. So if you want to follow me, just be my guest, and I'll be really glad to help you on whatever you need. Okay, so my talk today is going to be about CQRS. What is it? The fundamental concept, and also the implementation. Okay, we're going to have a sample implementation with .NET Core. Unfortunately, I don't have so much time to go deeper here, but I'll do my best to make sure that by the end of my presentation, you understand the concept, the fundamental concepts, when to apply CQRS, when not to apply CQRS. That's also very important, okay? Just because somebody's telling you that it's good practice, you should do that, you should think about it. You should really consider before doing that, okay? So let's get started. So before we get started, actually, I would like to highlight here what is CQRS. It's very simple, very straightforward. It is command and query responsibility segregation. Nothing much than that, nothing more, nothing less, okay? So nowadays, especially when we are learning how to create systems, how to develop systems, uh, the first approach that we have is we create a database, we model a database, right? Base it on our business. And then after doing that, what we do is we have tables with some columns, and those columns, they have some data types. And those data types, they are transferred, I would say, transferred to our modeling in the database in the software context. So for example, if you have a student table on the database, we usually have a model to represent that. So the ID, the name, the last name, phone, and etc. Right? So basically, the concept of CQRS is to separate and give responsibility and segregate by commands and queries. So as I was saying, usually when we start creating softwares or in some simple concepts, in some simple business contexts, what we have is a single model for reading and writing. So basically, we send DTOs, data transfer objects, all over the system or with other systems, and you have the same model for reading data and for writing data, right? That's very common. It's not wrong. It's not wrong, but there are other ways for doing it, and depending on what you need to achieve, you can use CQRS for your goal. So the difference is instead of having only one model to read and write, we separate, we segregate, right? We have one model for reading, one model for writing. It's very simple, but the thing here is when we start to using CQRS, you also start to talk about domain-driven design. I'm not talking of, I'm not going deep here about domain-driven design. This is another subject. But anyway, when you use CQRS, it's very common. It's very similar for you to use some DDD approach. Okay, and we are going to talk about that in a couple minutes. But before talking about CQRS in practice, I would like to talk about its origins. Okay, so what is CQRS? Where did it come from? Why does it even exist, and what's the benefit, right? So CQRS was first written by Greg Young in 2010. Okay, and he used pretty much CQS. So before talking about it, we need to understand the difference between CQS and CQRS. Okay, actually not the difference, but what's the relation between each other. Okay, so CQS was originally created by Bertrand Meyer. Okay, he created a new software development language, and then he said, okay, instead of having only one model for doing everything, why cannot I create methods to do things so I can give single responsibilities for each one of them? So what I mean is, if you have one method to do queries and one method, I'm not talking about commands and queries, I'm talking about methods. Okay, so that was pretty much the basic concept about CQS. So in CQS, it states that every method that you have in a class should be either a command that will perform an action or a query that will return data to the caller, but never both. Okay, so it means that you should have one method to do a query and one method to perform a command. Okay, but never both. In other words, it means asking a question should never change the answer. So if you ask something now, it should not change when it comes back to the caller. And by caller, I mean any API, any other system that is calling you. Okay, so something like that. So basically, the commands will produce side effects. It will change your entity, will change your data, and the queries, they are side effect free. They should not change anything. They're only related to getting data and getting those data to your system. All right. Another important thing to mention is it's very common that everybody thinks, not everybody, but almost everybody thinks that when you're working with CQRS, you need to have two databases. That's not true. That's not mandatory. I mean, you can have, but you need to have in mind that when you have two databases, one for writing and one for querying, you have another problem because you need to think about what is your strategy for syncing the database. Because when you change the writing database, you need to send that information. You need to send that new information to the query database, right? So what you're going to do, you can do database sync, you can do web jobs to sync. I don't know, there are many possibilities here, okay? But just keep in mind that using CQRS will add some kind of complexity for your project. Um, I there is a very simple code here that I would like to show you. So this code, it's following CQS, okay? So basically, let's have a look here. I'm gonna zoom this, and it's a very simple code, but look, we have here one method for a command, right? Because we are writing to a file, and we have one method to query. So pretty much we are just verifying, giving a path if the file exists. And if that file exists, we're going to have a Boolean, a returning value for the query. And then if everything is okay, if we have that file there, then we're gonna write that information. So pretty much what is the business need here? Okay, so you look for a path, and in that path, if that contains a file, you should write that file. We are following CQS principle here, but we have a problem here, okay? The problem is pretty much could be right here. So let's say that the file is there right now. So here you have a true statement. Then you have a true statement here, right? And then you go to the next line. But right here, at this right moment here, let's say that the file that you have right now was moved or was deleted by another process. So for sure, this line is not gonna work. This is broken. Because if any other process comes here in this very little space of time and remove that or change that or do something else, so it's not gonna work. So your code here is following the CQS approach, but you're not covering everything. All right, this is just a very simple explanation about how you have some limitations using CQS, but also just to be in mind that implementing this can have many limitations, and those limitations may not be able to represent what you need. Okay, this is very simple code, but anyway, I'm just showing you that we have limitations. By the other hand, we have this code that is not following CQS. And why not? Because we only have one method. So look, before we have two methods, right? For writing and for reading. And here we have only one method to do everything. We are not following the CQS principle. However, it's doing what needs to be done. So we have a path. We are trying to write a file. We are passing a path here. We are passing a content, can be, I don't know, a txt file or something like that. And then we are making sure that we're trying to do something and returning okay. And if that's not working, we are returning a fail. We are not following CQS, but we have a code that will not fail, okay? And in case it fails, we have a catch, and we can do that. So just keep in mind, CQS and CQRS will not solve all of your problems, okay? So let's go ahead. During my presentation, I will give you some tips about how I have implemented CQRS and the things that I had some hard times and some trouble. So I will give you some tips. So my tip number one is focus on your business context and implementation and the limitations. So you should be aware that if you are implementing this CQRS, for example, you are really doing something thinking about the limitations and the value that's going to bring to you. And just remember that implementing something that won't bring that will not bring you any value can bring you trouble. Okay, in real world projects, if you are implementing something that you don't need, you are just adding some complexity for your code. So just moving ahead here, I just spoke about CQS, and when spoke about CQS, we were talking about methods, right? Methods, not models. So what Greg did is he took this CQS implementation or idea or insight, and he said like, oh, okay, so instead of only using methods, we can go ahead and use classes to do that, models to do that. So just keep in mind that CQRS is, I could say, not a layer, but um, another way of doing something very similar to CQS, but you have some more benefits because you are using modeling classes and not only methods. Okay, so this is just for your information and how CQRS and CQS are related. Anyway, everything that I said so far means this. When you're talking about CQS, you're talking about commands and methods and read methods. And CQRS, you're talking about command model and reading models. Do we have any questions so far, Rogério? If yes, just let me know, please.
No, no, it's
No?
okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving ahead, you should be asking yourself, why should I use CQRS then? Why? I give you some good examples. Okay, one of them is scalability, right? I'm not sure if you know that, but I don't have an exact number to give you. But on distributed systems where you have database and distributed database, the reading is something around 10 to 15 times more than creating, updating, or deleting data. So your users or your process or whatever you have that is consuming data, they are doing this much more, for example, 15 times more than the others. So you have people consuming data all the time and all the time. So if you're thinking about scalability and you can have an approach where you can separate the reading from the writing, this is a good idea. You can scale very, very easily. Okay. And for doing that, there are many ways of doing that for sure. So, for example, in this concept, you have the commands, create, update, and delete, and the queries only to read. And you could have, for example, one server only to handle. And when I say server, I mean you could have like a container or one dedicated server on cloud, on premise, doesn't matter. Okay, it's just your strategy. But anyway, you could have, for example, one server or one container or something just to handle the commands, and I don't know, maybe five or six containers just to handle the queries. And you could have like a load balancing to see if you are having a lot of requests, and you can manage that and send that to your container or to your server. Okay, so that's gonna scale your application pretty much and give you performance. Okay, one real world example that we have is for example Netflix. Okay, if you look at Netflix, what is the thing that the users do the most? They search. They search for titles. They search for movies. They search for everything. So we are pretty sure that you change your password maybe once a year. You change your credit card information maybe once, I don't know, never, but once a year also. But the reading of the data is extreme. You're reading data all the time. So you could have like microservices to do things, real microservice acting and returning data. And you can have like um, a reading database for doing that for you and a writing database, and you can have cache. There are many ways of doing that, but this is a real, and this is not read, this is real. I'm talking about reading, 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 and I just write real word sample. Okay? So what I'm saying is, if you still cannot understand what I'm saying, so I'm gonna tell you more. You can have performance. So let's say that you have a client. This can be an API or I don't know, mobile applications, whatever, doesn't matter. And if you model your application in a way that you can provide data for the user in a faster way, you could have like an API only for reading models. You can have cache here at this layer, and you can have like some real fast SQL queries here to optimize the way you're reading. In the other hand, you can have an API only for writing models, and that's gonna send that information to our database. Once again, one more time, you can bring some you can have some troubles here. For example, how are you gonna, if you have two database, what is your strategy for syncing the database? Okay, so you need to think about it. You can sync the database in many ways, but you need to think about it. You are implementing CQRS, but you need to make sure that you give it for your user response with the latest data or not. It really depends on the context that you have. I'll give you a sample where I used to work. It's a manufacturing company, and I had a database for writing and a database for reading. Okay, this database for reading, I had some jobs that I was getting data from this database, the writing database, and sending this information, this new information to the reading database. So I had a delay of 10 minutes. For my business, that's okay. They don't care about 10 minutes. But if you're working with banking or financial information, maybe that can be a trouble. Okay, so my tip number 2 is you need to analyze the complexity of what you need to do first. Please do not go ahead and implement CQRS just because you're reading some articles and you think it's cool. You need to have a simple context and do that. If you have a business context where you need crude, okay, it's fine. You can do crude. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, otherwise you're just adding more complexity. And another thing that is very important, that when you are implementing CQRS, sometimes, most of the time, you are going through a domain-driven design space. Okay, so one thing that I had benefits on my project is that when you use CQRS for the team, for the development team, you have a simplicity. And why do I say that? I say that because when you have commands and queries and you have a very solid code development process, you can bring simplicity because the developer will speak the same language as the business team. Okay, so when we talk about bounded context, we are talking about some contexts that are related to a single operation, but can correlate with others. Okay, so in this way, if you have ubiquitous language, it means that you are talking the same language as the business, and you can transfer that to your software development process. Instead of only creating search, update, delete, you can do some actions, some commands. For example, author student, enroll student, instead of inserting student or updating student. So that can give you a lot of benefit during the development process. And just to be a little bit more clear about what is a bounded context, so I'll give you a very simple example. Okay, you can see here on the left side that we have the sales context. Okay, the sales context is everything related to sales in your company. And on the right side, you have the support context. It is everything related to support. But we have something in common here. In the middle, you can see that the sales context and the support context, they both talk about customer. They both have product, all right? So it's the same thing, but have different meaning. They have different meaning depending on what they need to do. A customer for the support is not a customer for sales. And when you have this tactical design development process, it really simplifies what you're doing. So let's move ahead here. So basically, um, CQRS is often used with domain-driven design, as you said, and it means that you can shape your system naturally, and that's going to map your business to your code. That's it. You have some use case, you have some business context, and then you use commands to correspond to a concrete intent and queries that will be designed to answer all the questions. So do this and return that and do this. Okay, and once again, it's the exact opposite of the crude based thinking application. And when I say crude based thinking, it's just what I said. You have a model that will be exactly the same as your table with the data types, etc., etc. And look, it's kind of different. So the crude based thinking will be something like this. You have the database, and then you have your class with your properties, etc., etc. That will be the same thing as a database. But when you're talking about um, working with DDD and CQRS, so you have context once again, but the concept is the same, but in different contexts. Okay, so that's the major difference. If you fully understand that, so you are totally okay to go ahead. So right now, I will do a very my demo here. Okay, and my demo will be the first thing is a crude based thinking project. Okay, I well, let me show you first, so it's gonna make sense. It's on my GitHub, so if you wanna get this later, if you wanna clone it, just go there and clone it. We have three projects here. One is called before, one is called after, and the other one is called after mediator. Okay, the before project is a crude implementation. Okay, we have API interface, and we are calling a service, and that service is calling some database and inserting data, updating data, and so forth. And we have an after implementation. This after implementation is a CQRS implementation that I made by hand. Okay, I'm not using any framework here, so you can see how I made it. And this third one is the mediator implementation of CQRS. If you don't know if you don't know this mediator, it's a package for the .NET implementation. It's very simple, very straightforward. Then I'm gonna show you how to do that. Okay, the way you install it is also very simple. Just install package mediator, and then you start using it. Very straightforward. So the first one is gonna be this project here. As I mentioned, this is the crude based think implementation. It's this project, the before project here. I'm going to show you the way that we usually do, right? So basically, I have a database here, and this database, we have this table, students, right? This student table is a storage for storing students with ID, name, age, and address. Very straightforward, no problem here, right? So what we do basically is we have the DTOs, we have some entities, and we have the services, right? So pretty much what we do, we have the student DTO. I just would like to say that I'm not following any architecture pattern here or anything else. It's very simple, okay? So we copy the database types, we create a class, I just call it DTO, okay? Just to transfer data. And then we have the entities, And then we have some sort of data implementation. In this case, I'm using entity framework, okay? But just for the sake of being very easy implementation. And then I have an API where I have a student controller, right? Let me just take this from here to here. Um, I'm not proud of these, to be honest. Okay, I have some validations here on my controller. It's not the best of the world, but anyway, it's just a sample, right? But what we do is we usually have some controllers with some actions for updating, deleting, inserting, and that's what we do. So let me uh, debug this. This implementation is with .NET Core, API version 2.2. Very easy, very straightforward. So what I have here, I have a Swagger interface and I have the API student, right? So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna add Jon Snow here, my favorite character from Game of Thrones. He's probably 30 years old, something like that, and he lives in the north, right? In the north. So I'm gonna execute that. What's gonna happen is my controller, my API is receiving this DTO that is pretty much a copy of the database table. Then I do some dummy validation here, some horrible validation to be honest. And then I have a service layer, and this service layer is going to insert information on my context here from entity framework, and then I return. So what I'm doing here is I am inserting data and returning data at the same time, right? Not following any CQRS practice here. And then by the end of the day, it's gonna return me HTTP status code 201 and saying that my information is there. I hope so. It is. It was saved. So basically, what we do this for the entire system, right? We do this pretty much. We copy the database tables. Um, and we don't have a code that really represents what the business is doing. Okay, when you go to your business partner and you say that, hey, let me insert a student, let me update student, it doesn't make sense for the business concept. It doesn't make any sense, right? So another approach is basically this one. Let me go back here. This is the crude implementation, right? So as I was saying, we have the database, and then we have a UI here, and this UI here is sending some data forward and back, and this service or whatever you have, a business layer, service layer, this is sending this information to the database, and you are using writing and reading models at the same time, okay? There is no problem doing it. If your business is simple, there is no problem. Okay. But you can do something different. You can do a CQRS implementation. Okay. And pretty much this is what's going to have. You're going to have a command model here, and you're going to have a query model here. What happens is your UI, your user, your API, whatever, it's going to make it's going to send a command that makes sense to your business, and that command will be a model that will execute some validation, some logic, etc., and that command will be saved to your database. When you need to get some data, you come back here, the UI is going to have another query service. Okay, it's a different model, possibly with less data type or with data that only makes sense to that concept, to that context, sorry. And then you are querying that information, right? It's very easy, very straightforward when you have only one database. But if you have two databases, so what you do, right? So you need to have implementation to sync the database, to make sure that um, your business is going to get the latest information or not, but it really depends on what you need to do. Okay, just be sure that it really depends on what you need to do. And this is what we have. So if you're thinking about microservices, okay, it's a very trending name, trending ways of creating applications. So what we're gonna do is we're going to have this ASP.NET Core controller that's going to receive a command or a query. Then you have mediator, that is the framework that will uh, um, apply, that will receive the command. And you have a handler, right? The mediator here in green here, it's only for receiving your command, right? You can do some validations here, etc., for the fields, for the types. And then you have the command itself. So you can consider the command as your business logic, for example, right? You could have some business logic here, depending on what you need to do. And then this guy, this handler, will be responsible to call your infrastructure layer. That can be, I don't know, maybe entity framework, maybe Docker, maybe a text file, doesn't matter, right? Then this is what's gonna happen. You will write some transactional operation in a flow that will separate, thinking about your business. And talking about microservices, it really depends on how micro is that, how small of that, how much you need to perform operation with microservices, right? But using CQRS is a very good practice when you are thinking about creating microservices application. So here in the second project, that is the CQRS in practice after mediator, we have a different design. Look, once again, I'm not talking here about architecture, etc., but basically, I have an application layer, I have a domain layer, and an infrastructure layer, right? And for my presentation, I have Angular application that's gonna call some controllers and call some commands and queries. The difference here, if you compare with these other application, is that let's say that we have departments here, right, in your company. So we have the financial team, the IT team, the the company, the department responsible for register students, etc. So just take a look on how different we are implementing this. Let me open here the solution, right? So this is the major difference right here. We are thinking about our business, so we are segregating, separating our intents. So we have, for example, let's say that I want to do the same thing. I want to register a new student. So I have a command here to do that. Oh, I'm very sorry, this is in Portuguese, okay? This is a demo that I used some days ago. But anyway, so here I have a command for registering new student. And what I have here pretty much is only the name, age, and address of my student. When you're using Mediator, you need to use some interface from Mediator. So in this case, I'm using iRequest interface because I'm gonna do a request with my command, right? And I'm using here Mediator. Once again, if you want to use Mediator, if you don't know how, okay, very simple. Just come here to the pack manager, just do install package Mediator. That's gonna install in your software, in your application. Okay, and we have a handler here. So look, the responsibility, I have some responsibility segregation here. I have a command that is only the intent of what I want to do. And then here I have my handler. So for every command, I need to have a specific handler, right? So in this case, you could write these in one file if you wanted to. For example, you could take this method here, this handler from here, and paste it here if you wanted to. It doesn't matter, but this is my way of separating the files. But anyway, you can see that it's the same name, right? Register new student command and register new student command handler. This is where your business logic will happen, right? All right. So basically, what I have here, I also have a I request, and then I'm passing my command here as a parameter. You see? So this handler is gonna listen to this command, and then this is my return. Okay, when you have a command, you should not have a return because you're not following CQRS. Okay, but to be honest, in some real world projects, sometimes you need to not always follow everything the way they tell you to do. I give you a good example of that. Last week, I needed to create a token on my API and give that back to my user, okay, to the consumer. So what I did, I created a token and then I had to return that to my user. If I was following CQRS 100%, I should not do that on my command. I should have a query to do that. But then I was adding some complexity. I was like, okay, I have to create a query to return this token that I just created. It doesn't make sense. So I will make my command return, okay? So it's not always following 100%, but CQRS states that you should do that. So just coming back in here, I have a DB context also with entity framework. I am doing some injection here. And then on my handle method, you can see that when I have this interface, I need to implement it, and then I need to write my code here, right? It's saying that it's not implemented, so I need to implement it. In this case, I don't have any business validation here. I just want to call my database and save that information, and that's it. So let me start my application here. This is the old one. This is the new one. So what I'm gonna do, here I have a Angular project. I will debug it. Just make sure it's not running. Um, let's see. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I have this user interface. It's a Angular 7 application, I believe. If I'm sure about it, let's see. Oh, it's still building. Okay. So this is my Angular application, and I'm going to consume my, and I'm gonna call a command on my controllers. So I have a controller here, the same thing as before. It's a student controller, and this student controller will do exactly the same thing. But look, here I have a meaning. I have a meaning for what I'm doing. I'm saying you should get the student by name, for example, or I should register a new student, right? Register a new student. This is going to call a command. I'm not using some crude based thinking anymore. I'm calling mediator. I'm sending my command. I'm telling him what needs to be done, right? So let me try to do that. I don't have any specific application, so I just um, do a get here, for example, student, and what is the controller name? It is register new student, right? So register new student. Uh, I'm just passing a raw command here. I'm not getting the data from the interface, etc. But it's just a demo, right? But anyway, I'm sending this command to my mediator, and let's see what's going to happen. I just send it, and entity framework working. Oops. Let's see. All right. So I just created another Jon Snow, right? But instead of doing that, I did a command, but there's something that went wrong. Demos, right? Let me show you. The context is here. Let me try again. Slash student, slash API, student, register new. Let me try that again. Yeah, it's not stopping on my handler as it should, but it should be here, right? It's coming here, calling my context and registering the new student. So that's happening. It's just not stopping the debugging. Not sure why, but you can see that I'm adding the data here, and I can do the same thing. I can do the same thing for getting data, but instead, I'm using a query. I'm using another context. I'm not using these anymore. I'm using these. right? I have this class here that is only a query. So get student by name query. This is a request, and I'm going to return a student view model. Okay, so I'm just passing the name. And then I have a query handler also. Let me see if this is gonna work and stop here. But anyway, it should stop. So let me get again, API student, get student by name. Yeah, okay. And then I should get that information again on my handler. Oh, it's working now. It's on my handler. And see, I sent a query here, and the query using mediator automatically found my handler, and my handler is here. And if I had any business logic here or something like that, I should validate here, and then I just go back and return the data that I want, right? It's a very simple, very simple demo, but what I want you to focus here is really the way that we implement it. Okay, the way we implement it is more important than the data itself. So let's compare again. It's very straightforward. You can divide by departments. You can take some advantage of domain-driven design using context and talking to your business and having the same language, right? So as you can see, the implementation is very easy, very straightforward. But remember that having and implementing CQRS can add you some complexity when you want to sync data. Okay. Well, here we don't have anything else that is important, but only a domain, infrastructure, and so forth. So let me go back to my presentation here. All right. So there's another subject that are very nice to talk about. There is the CQRS implementation using event sourcing. What is the meaning of this? The meaning is that the way you develop your application is going to be based on events, right? So as you can see here, you have your UI or whoever is calling you, right? So you call your domain model and then your database, and then after doing something, so after doing a change, a writing on the database, you can publish that, and that can update your cache. So when you do a query, you can get data really fast and the latest data. Okay, this is just a sample also of how you can implement CQRS with event sourcing. It's very useful if you need that in your application. But basically, it's just another partner that is commonly used with CQRS. And in short term, it means that all the data that you have in your system will be stored in form of events. Okay, so you have an event log. Everything you do in your application, any change you do or any modification you do will be a piece of information that will state that something happened. Okay, it's always in the past. So for example, a user was created, a name was created, I had a shipping address added, I had an order submitted, and by this you can publish this, and you can send like emails, or you can call another API, another microservice. You have many things to do here, right? We are not going deep here. I think my time is almost there, but just give a read about it. CQRS with event sourcing. One great benefit that you can have here is that you always have information about what happened in your system. Okay, so the data was created, was modified, was shipped, was changed, blah blah blah. Doesn't matter. You always have track. You always have log in your application. So a few recommendations that I had from the projects that I implemented CQRS is when you should use. Okay, so one of them is when you have some collaborative domains and you have multiple operations that you are performing. parallel information on the same data, using CQRS is very useful. Okay, if you're working with microservice-driven development, or it means that you have some microservices to do things and you're thinking about implementing it, CQRS can give you some good benefits to do that. In scenarios where you have performance of data reads and you need that to be tuned in a way that you can have write data and read data, and that happen often, a lot of time reading and writing data at the same time, using CQRS is a good option because you can separate the responsibilities. You can have one database or one data source for reading, one for writing. You don't have concurrency, okay? And if your radio is high, okay, so it means that you can separate, and that's going to give you some benefits. However, you can have troubles when you need to sync information. If you need to deliver real-time information, that's something that you need to think about also. And the last one is when you have integration with other systems, okay, and especially those systems that cannot fail at all. So implementing is very good because it should not affect the availability of other systems. All right, because even though you have a problem, you can just give back information to your system. Maybe not the real data, but you give a response at least. You say, okay, I got your response. I don't have anything to give you right now because I got a problem back there, but okay, I'm talking to you. Okay. And some recommendations of when not to use CQRS. These are based on my using, okay, guys? My usings of CQRS. So I just came up with some ideas of some things that I had some hard times. So when you have a domain and your business rules are simple, go ahead, do the CRUD based thinking, the CRUD based implementation. It doesn't matter. If you do something good, if you're a good programmer, if you can deliver something good, it doesn't matter. If you want to just implement CQRS by implementing, you're just adding something you don't need. Keep it simple, right? Keys principle. Keep it simple, stupid, right? If you have a CRUD style interface that is very easy and you don't have related data access operation, it's okay. Go ahead, do something simple, right? And you can also implement CQRS not in the whole system. Just do where you think it's useful, right? You can have implementation only separated, not in the whole system. Remember, keep it simple. All right, so I will open for questions right now. So thank you so much, gracias, obrigado. I'm not sure where you're watching us right now, from Brazil, from Nicaragua, etc. So I will open for question if there is any question right now. Okay, Rogério, are you there?
Oh, no questions for now.
All right. So if we don't have question, it means that I explained everything very well, or nobody understand anything, right?
Yes, yes. Oh, it's amazing, awesome session. I
Thank you.
thank you so much. And it's okay.
All right, thank you. This is the GitHub link, okay, github.com/r Carneiro.net. So you can see the sample code right there. Once again, it's a simple code, but it really explains the concept and how you can implement that. My email is there, contato@rcarneiro.net. If you guys have any questions, I have my Twitter also. You can ping me there. So thank you so much, Rosario. It was my pleasure to be here, and I hope to be here more time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hai. Thank you. So, guys, in a few minutes, we have a Caio session. Okay. Thank you, Hai.
Thank you, Rosario. Bye bye.
Bye bye. So guys, oh, I'm back. Uh, Caio can't present online today, so let's show his video uh, was recorded. Okay, so one second. Okay, let's go.
It's Caio Sousa, and we're talking here from MSP Tech, Latam, Latin America. And today we're going to be speaking, well, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about testing web applications with Selenium. We're going to get into an example using Visual Studio, but I'm also going to try to show the same example using the browser. So we can compare the examples, see what's going on. So I might just have this title changed to Testing Web Applications Introduction to Testing Web Applications with Selenium. But we are going to get into Visual Studio, right? So I'm a Microsoft student partner, and let's get to it. Alrighty. Oops, sorry. So context. Let's contextualize what we're going to talk about today. So this example is a really simple walkthrough to Selenium. So I'm going to do a really quick introduction. I'm going to talk little bit about Selenium. What is Selenium, right? Where it comes from and everything. Then I'm going to talk about the IDE. Then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the WebDriver, which is where we integrate with Visual Studio, or you could integrate uh, with other IDEs and languages. And then at the end, I'll just show two quick examples using Selenium IDE and the Selenium WebDriver. I'm going to try to um, simulate the same testing for both of the approaches. Right. So a little bit about me. I'm a computer science graduate at Federal University of Goiás. I do research on software engineering and deaf and hard of hearing. You guys can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. I think it's the fastest way you guys can get in touch with me in a professional manner. So you guys can go ahead and check this link out. I've been developing for .NET for a while now. I think it's been more than 7 years, probably about 8 years, and I usually work on projects related to web applications. All right, next slide. So, what is Selenium? Selenium is a set of different software tools, each with a different approach to supporting test automation. So, Selenium gives us some tools, right? So we can work with them and we can test web projects in a way that maybe we wouldn't be able to test them using traditional tools, right? And it focuses on test automation, which means using these software tools to run repeatable tests against the application that you were testing. So, for example, navigation testing. Let's say you want to navigate through a web page, through web pages, right? Navigate, insert, information, open videos, and just interact with the web page. Let's say that you want to do that, you want to create a test for that, and then you don't want to keep testing that when when there's an update to a web page. So we all know that web applications updates usually updates regularly, and keeping up with example testing all the pages over and over again, depending on the application, might be a challenging task, right? So Selenium has been around since 2004, and Jason Huggins, that at the time worked at ThoughtWorks, pretty much started this project, right, as an internal project for that he wanted to test and improve testing internally at the company that he worked for. And the Selenium is a open source solution, so it's pretty much free to use, and you can find the repositories at GitHub. So we have Selenium, SeleniumHQ.org, and then the unit driver, the web driver for Selenium repositories at GitHub. So let's talk little bit about the Selenium IDE. So the Selenium IDE is an integrated development environment, which is a tool used to develop Selenium test cases, right? It records the user actions in the browser for you, and it uses existing Selenium commands with parameters defined by the context of the element which the user or the tester is interacting with. So that pretty much means that you can record whatever you're doing, and then like for example, you can go to a page, record that, insert a text, record that without having to program anything. Your interactions with the computer is being recorded, and then you can run that later as a test, right? And currently there's extensions for Chrome and Firefox, so you can download the extensions using the browser. And you can organize test suites, so you can create a lot of tests and then just organize them in projects and create test suites for them. And also, let's say you're using Safari, you can also test using command line. And then you're probably going to need like a command line runner. You're no, you're going to need a command line runner, which can be accessed through the Selenium website. And then you'll need Node, npm, and then the browser driver. And then through the command line, you can execute and create tests. And I'm going to try to show an example at the end of this presentation of how we can use Selenium IDE through with the Chrome browser. So you can access it and download this IDE at seleniumhq.org dash backslash selenium IDE. Now let's talk a little bit about the WebDriver. So the WebDriver is the API that we integrate, that we can use with Visual Studio using, for example, C Sharp. The WebDriver is designed to provide a simpler and more concise programming interface, right? And it makes direct calls to the browser using each browser's native support. So we do need the browser's driver, which is different from the, for example, from the Selenium IDE, which you only need to download or install the extension on the browser. In this case, you need the API and you need the drivers, right? And the C sharp bindings are distributed as a set of signed DLLs. So C sharp has DLLs which can be located at NuGet. Currently, Selenium has 4 NuGet packages, And the one that we're going to focus on for this example is the Selenium WebDriver. So for example, let's say we want to test a Chrome, right? Let's say we're going to create automated tests for Chrome. So we need to navigate to the Chrome driver webpage and download the driver. So let's say in the future you want to create automated tests for Firefox. You need to go ahead and download that driver and have it locally in your computer or whatever computer is running the tests. And then after you have the NuGet packages, have the drivers, we're able to execute the tests. For example, so let's say we have everything installed, then you can instantiate a new Firefox driver or Google Chrome driver. And let's say we want to navigate to a page. So we're going to, after we instantiate the driver, we'll put driver, navigate, and go to that page. So you can navigate through pages. You can find an element, which is a HTML, right? HTML DOM. So we can find an element by the ID tag. You can find the element by the class name, by the tag name, for example, an iframe and input. You can find an element by the link text, by the partial link text. We can find an element by the CSS class ID. And then you can also find an element by ID, for example, and then get the element text to see if that text is correct or incorrect or validate or do whatever testing that needs to be done. We also have libraries that works with the cookies, right? So you can set and delete cookies and do testing for cookies. And now let's go ahead and execute some examples. First, let's execute an example using the Selenium IDE. All right, let's go ahead and close this, open this up. Let's open this page, right? So if we go to the Selenium IDE page, and here you can see that there's a Chrome and a Firefox download. So if we click on the Chrome download, I'm currently in Chrome. If we click on the Chrome download, the extension for Selenium web pages will open. And as you guys can see, I already have it installed in my computer on my browser. So I'm just going to keep this here. And then we should, after you install it, you should have the little link for Selenium here. So let's go ahead and click this link. And then a new project interface is going to open. Let's go ahead and create a new project. Let's name it MSP Tech. Click OK. Yeah, it's MSP. MSP Tech. Okay. And then let's create a new test. Let's name the tests Selenium dash navigation. So let's add this test. And then let's record. Right? Start recording. So let's go to https google.com. Let's see what happens here. Okay, first we're gonna expand this, and then we're gonna type in Selenium. Click out of the input and click Google search. And there you go, Selenium. Let's click on the Selenium link, the first Selenium link. It opened, and let's go ahead and click on download. Now, let me go ahead and open the IDE and stop recording. Now we have this project here. We can save it locally, use it in another browser, for example, or another computer which has this installed in the browser. And as you guys can see, for each action that we did, there is a command. Right, so first we open the web page, and then we set the window size. We did a mouse over on Gmail. We clicked the input, then we typed Selenium in the input, and then we did some other clicks. And then how can we run this test, right? So we can click here to run the test. Let's see what happens. So let's run this test. Running Selenium. Should click on the first link. There you go, and then everything seems to be working. And then I clicked on the download and it closed. Right. So the test ran fine. Here's a log to see everything's okay. We can change the command. We can change the target. We can change the value. We can give a description to it. So for example, let's change. Wait, click. Let's put type Microsoft. Type Microsoft. Let's change the value to Microsoft. Right. So I change the value to Microsoft. Here you go. Change the value to Microsoft instead of Selenium. Let's run the test and see what happens. So I changed the value to Microsoft. You clicked on the link that worked. And if we go to the test and check this out, look, everything seems to be working except for the download. It's still trying to find the link text download, which there's probably no link text download on the Microsoft page. So if you go to Microsoft page, there's no link called download. So there's a warning right there. Right. And as you guys can see, we can customize and do whatever needs to be done here and create all this automated testing. And then in the future, just run all tests and do regression testing through our application. So this is a pretty useful tool, right? Really quick to get started, really useful for creating regression testing and mobile, automated web navigation. Okay, so let me close this up. Let's go ahead and open our solution. So I already have set up a really simple unit test project here. And the first thing we need to do is download the Nugget package for Selenium. As you guys can see here, I already have Selenium WebDriver installed. But if you can find it, if you want to install it in your browser, if you want to install it in your solution, you can just go ahead and type Selenium here. And click on the Selenium WebDriver and install it. Here, as you guys can see, I already have it installed. I have the latest stable version installed in my solution. And we should have it here, Selenium WebDriver. So it's successfully installed. And then after that, I downloaded the drivers. I downloaded Chrome and Mozilla drivers. And then when I instantiate the driver, I put the path of where I install, where I have my driver located. So I currently have my driver located in my solution in this path. So when he instantiates this, when he calls this constructor up, we'll just pass in a parameter with the driver location. So for this example, we're going to test using Chrome. So we're going to do pretty much the same test. Navigate to the URL, which is Google. Find an element by name, which is Q. So if you go to google.com, for example, google.com, and we analyze this input, let's put inspect. The name of the input is Q. Right? Let me close this up. So we find the element by name, which is Q. We insert Selenium on there, on the input, and then we submit. So what should happen here is you should open this browser up, type in Selenium, and then submit Google search, which is the same test we did using the IDE, but we're using a different approach here. So let me go ahead and debug so we can see what happens. Let's debug all tests. And then I also have my WebDriver here running. So this is the Chrome WebDriver that I downloaded. I have it running on my computer. Just double click and the executable file. So let's see here. So the first step is opening the Chrome, right? Chrome browser. So that worked fine. Let me try to, yeah, that seems to be working. All right, now let me expand this so you can step by step. So let's step over. So navigated. Let's find the element. So there you go, the input element. Type in Selenium. And then submit that, which is pretty much click on Google search. So that seemed to be working fine. And then if we continue, we should have the test pass result, which is just a assertion. Okay. So test passed. So let's go ahead and debug this again. Without a breakpoint. And see what happens. Very simple example. So open Google, type in Selenium, navigate, and submit, close. Everything seems to be working well. So this is a introductory example. And the WebDriver seems to be more complex than the IDE, But as a programmer, I find it better for more complex scenarios where maybe input elements might change name or change IDs. So this in some cases can be the best approach for testing. But what I would like to make clear here is that Selenium is a test automation tool. So it navigates and it helps us automate this testing so we don't have to keep navigating every time there's a change, right? So you have a complex web pages, complex project, and let's say that your team doesn't have time to keep opening each web pages, each of the web page and testing for each update, right? Because web pages we know that constantly updates. And this is pretty much it, guys. If you guys have any questions, just please post it on this presentation, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you very much.
So guys, it's a Caio session, and in a few minutes we have a session with Brazilian MVPs, Carlos dos Santos and Vinicius Moura. Okay, see you. Oh, hello, Vinicius.
Hello, how are you?
All right, fine. Did you?
I think Carlos, no?
No, not yet.
Wait a moment, please.
Can you wait a few minutes?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
call WhatsApp. No, wait a moment. You're More 3 minutes, please.
Okay, no problem.
Rogério, uh, can you wait 10 o'clock, or you can start it?
Can you start now?
Okay, no problem.
Okay,
Wait here.
let's go.
Let's try here. Mm, Wait a moment. I can share my screen. Mm, Okay. And now, mm, okay, let's go. I share my screen here. Click share my screen. Okay. Please, you do do you view my PowerPoint, please?
Yes, yes, nice.
Okay. Good night, everyone. My name is Vinicius, and Carlos will will enter after. We will talk about Azure DevOps, Microsoft Collaboration Developer Tool. And I will talk about the continuous integration and the continuous deployment using Azure DevOps. And my title is All Roads Diverse to CI and CD with Azure DevOps. Here, this is the Azure DevOps tool. The Azure DevOps is a collaboration to development to manipulate all projects and products, software products and projects. Here, example, I have 5 main features on this tool. I have Azure boards to manipulate and create tasks to your product and track these tasks on your plan. Azure helps use the source control to create your application. Here you use GitHub, Git or TFVC, Team Foundation Version Control. Azure Pipeline is used to create a pipeline, continuous integration, the continuous deployment. Example, I will create a ASP.NET Framework application, and I will deploy this application on Azure. Azure Artifacts, you manipulate your packages, example, Nugget packages, Maven packages, etc. And you have Azure test plans to create and manipulation uh, user tests, create switch tests, create test case, and execute. Okay. Here, on first example, I will create one ASP.NET Framework application using Azure here, and I will use this feature Azure DevOps Projects. This is a new feature on Azure. New one year ago, this feature was created. This feature creates a respective application, create a respective repo on Azure DevOps, create a respective build definition and the respective release definition, and finish we will deployment this application on web app in Azure. I will create this demo now here. To create this, I will select here this is my zoom it. Okay. This is my Azure subscription. On all resources here or select, I will use this feature DevOps project. Here I click. This is a wizard, and I create here. I will create a project. Click and add button. Okay. I will select. You have many languages here: Node.js, PHP, Java, static website, Python, Ruby, etc. But I will create here .NET, and I will use the ASP.NET framework. Okay, and I will deploy this ASP.NET framework on Windows Web App on Azure Web App Service. Click here next, and now I will create my project name, and I will connect my Azure subscription, my Azure environment on my Azure DevOps account. Okay, here I will create example MSP online Azure. Oh, sorry, online Azure. This is a wizard. And I will create my organization VSTS Sprint. This is my account on Azure DevOps. My web app name, this is the same name of my project. And I select my location on my Azure subscription on where I will deploy my respective application. Okay, here I will done, and now this wizard will create my respective Azure DevOps project. I will create my respective Git repository. I will create my respective build and release definition. And on Azure, I will create my research group and I will create my web app. Okay, let's go to deploy this application. Wait 2 or 3 minutes to create this application, and I will select on respective. This is my Azure DevOps account. I will create on my organization VSTS Sprint, and now I will have MSP online. No, it's not created my respective project. I will see my deployment here on Azure. Here is created my resource at this moment. Please wait 1 or 2 minutes. Let's go refresh the page. MSP online. Yes. Here I create my respective project. I will access. Okay. Here I have boards, and I will create my tasks to planning my project. And now I have this repo, and he created a respective GitHub app, MSP online, and I will have a sample application here. And example, I have my solution, and I have my respective my CS pros and my unit test pros. Okay, now let's go. I have on pipelines. I have build my build definition, and this build is execute now. Example, at this moment I git check. I realize git checkout. I realize a nugget restore, and at this moment I will build my solution. I will test my respective project tests, and finish. I will create my respective artifact to deploy my application. Wait a moment, please. Okay, finish my publish artifact. Okay, finish, and I have my respective artifact. Click on artifact and drop folder, and here I have my respective deployment, and I will have a respective zip file sample web application zip. Okay, with the zip I will create my respective release definition, and this release definition will connect my respective Azure subscription, and I will create my respective web app. Okay, here on deploy I have my respective not created yet, respective web app will not is created. Wait more 2 minutes. Let's go here. Oh yeah, created. My not yet. Refresh my page again. Not, my web app is called MSP Online Azure, but not created yet. My deployment is in progress. I will. Oh yeah, create a Azure App Service. At the moment, I will create my respective app service. Wait a moment, please. Mm, created it.
Hello, Vinicius.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry for delay.
No problem, Carlos. Carlos, at this moment, I will show an example to create my web app and the respective Azure DevOps project using feature Azure DevOps project on Azure, okay?
Okay,
No problem.
go ahead.
Okay, let's go here. Refresh my page again. Okay, my web app is created here, MSP Online Azure, and when I finish my respective deployment, I will have my URL msponlineazure.azurewebsite.net, and my application is up. More 2 minutes here. First first deployment is slow. Next deployment is very fast. Yeah. What is the status? Deploy Azure Web. At this moment, I will deploy I will created my Azure App Service, and at this moment, I will deploy my Azure App Service. Okay. Refresh here. My web app is here, is up, but my deployment is not up. Wait a moment. Okay, adding director, deploy my files. Okay, test my integration tests. Okay, test, and finally, finally, refresh my web app. Live demo is a problem.
Vinicius, are you creating a web deployment using DevOps from DevOps to Azure?
Yes, yeah, I use this feature here,
Okay.
DevOps project, and I will create a ASP.NET framework application.
Okay.
Basic.
Great.
Yeah. On Azure, with this wizard created, it created a respective resource group here, MSP Online Azure RG. Okay, I will create a respective web app, and on Azure DevOps, I created respective team project, MSP Online Azure, my respective repo, build definition, and release definition. Yeah, it's finished, and my application is up. Okay, cool. And this wizard, I have a same example to create my respective pipeline. I will create using Azure. And this example, I can create my respective pipeline using Visual Studio. I have a same application here, MSP Online VS, and on Marketplace, Visual Studio Marketplace, here I have a respective extension called Continuous Delivery Tools for Visual Studio. This feature creates a respective here. If I click on my solution and I selected configure continuous delivery to Azure, I will connect my respective subscription and I can create my respective app service on Azure here. Here I have my respective subscription and I have my respective app service. I will connect my Azure subscription, create my app services, create my resource groups, and deployment my application. Same, two different users has a same result here, okay? And resume here I have then if I use my Visual Studio, I connected Azure using feature continuous delivery tools for Visual Studio. On Azure, I create a respective resource group and I create respective web app. On Azure DevOps, I create my respective build definition, I create my respective release definition, and I will deploy and connect to my Azure subscription and finally deploy my application. On second option, I will demonstrate a demo. Here, I using a feature Azure DevOps project. Here, I will create on Azure DevOps my project, my build definition, my release definition, and I will kill this respective build and release definition. On Azure, I will create my research group and I will create my respective web app and deploy this application. Has two users to create a respective deployment on Azure. Okay? Carlos will show other two examples to deploy respective features, respective web apps on Azure using GitHub and using Azure DevOps. Okay, Carlos?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Sorry for a delay.
I will stop my sharing. Okay.
I will share my screen here. And can you see my screen here?
So, guys,
Yes.
we have one question.
Yes.
Can you Stern IT, can I use Azure DevOps CD and TI with native mobile apps?
Yes.
Yes,
Azure
of course, yes.
Yes. Azure DevOps, Carlos will show this example, but
Yes, I can show a real sample here.
Yes.
That a public for mobile app I have on my company publish. I will log in and I can show this pipeline.
Yes, but to resume, Azure DevOps builds and deploy any language and any platforms.
Yes.
You have templates to Android, iOS,
like a Kotlin, Swift,
Kotlin, Maven, Java, etc. Any language and any platforms.
I will show a little bit about this, the creation of these pipelines, and I will show for the first of all, I will show a real sample about publishing using that. This is a real DevOps repos from my company, and I have a repo here that it's a mobile app, and for this app we have a build, and I have this Android CI build. This is a real build that published using a roasted build server, and I can publish this app directly to Google Play, for example. It's a good sample of this. For this sample, and I will create another one, I use a Gradle for a native Android app, for example, and I using a command line to publish this application to Google Play. And I can publish every type of application using, for example, Android application or iOS application using Azure DevOps. And for this job, for this build, I use a roasted build. Vinicius, do you tell about the hosted builds?
No.
Okay. I will start my presentation, tell a little bit about the Azure pipelines, and I introduce this pipeline of builds. I have here some repos, some organizations of Azure, and when I create a build, I can create a build using two different approaches. For example, I can create a build using a new approach that is a YAML file. That's Vinicius love YAML file.
Yeah.
And
I,
yes.
you share your screen? Yeah.
Oh, my screen's sharing.
Oh, I don't.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
No, I know, but okay. Rogério, okay, screen?
Oh, one sec.
Yes.
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 Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
When I look, I have my code inside the Azure DevOps, or for example, I have my code inside GitHub or another repo, and I will create a build pipeline. I create a sequence of tasks that create an artifact, it's a build, and I can pick up this artifact and, for example, publish to Azure website, or publish to a store, or publish to our on-premise server. I can publish this artifact in many places. When I create a pipeline, I have two models. I have a YAML model, that's a new model. It's now it's more popular model. Principally, if you are using GitHub, you are using a YAML file that is a script of build, or I can use a classic build for Azure. When I use a classic build, I can choose where is my repo. For example, I have a Azure repo using Git format, or using a version control format. Or for example, I have a GitHub project. I can put my connection here, and I can connect to a GitHub and use the Azure pipelines to create a build. And for open source projects, this kind of pipeline is completely free. And this means that I can put my code on a GitHub repo. It's a public repo, and I can create my builds using Azure DevOps, that is free too, using Azure pipelines, for example. Or I can pick up my code from a GitHub server or Subversion or Bitbucket or whatever kind of code. For this sample, I can continue using a Azure repo, and for a Git model, I can choose what branch I will build. On this sample, I have only master build here. I can continue, and now I can select one of many scripts for my build. For example, if I needed to build using Jenkins, and yes, I can use Jenkins or many other tools, or a command line tool, or whatever that I needed to create my build. Oh, my build needed to write some command line. I needed to write
Visual Basic.
Yes. What?
Visual Basic.
Yes.
Visual Basic.
For example, I have a sample here, a build here that I use a command line features, and I will show you a build here. It's an ERP build. It's a Windows Form application that I have a build script here that I needed to create some tasks, and I put many tasks here. For example, I create a network map for some artifacts. Yes, I put SonarQube to analysis to create a static analysis for my code. I build solution. I delete some kind of files that I don't need for the final artifact. I copy some files from another directory, for example. This is a sample that a command MS-DOS command, not a command prompt that I can put inside my build tasks. Oh, I needed to put a PowerShell tasks, or I needed to put a Bash tasks. I can do everything of this. For
And
example,
I can connect
yes,
in many clouds, Azure,
yes.
AWS, GCP, etc. Okay,
For example,
using respective tasks or using command lines, bash, etc.
yes. For example, I can start my build using for example, a .NET Desktop app or a ASP.NET app. It's only a wizard, okay? It's only a sample. When I apply this, I have some tasks here. What is this tasks inside the build? Tasks is each step that I will run to create a build. So, and then, for example, for this specific build, it's a ASP.NET build. I use NuGet because I need to restore my package. I needed to put a restore command, and here I have commands for NuGet, restore, pack, push, custom. I will build my solution. And when I will build my solution, I can customize the command line for MS build. This is a MS build command. I can configure what platform, what configuration, it's a debugger release, for example. I can test my code if you have tests. I can publish symbol and can I publish artifacts and can I add some kinds of features. For example, I needed to execute a PowerShell command here and I put here a PowerShell and move this PowerShell in my scripts, in my tasks, and here I can choose, for example, a PowerShell from my repo. And imagine that you have a PowerShell script inside your repo. I can choose my repo, and I don't have a PowerShell here, but I can have a PowerShell here and put this file here. Or I don't have a PowerShell file. I will write my PowerShell here. I can
Inline
write
script.
my script. Yes, inline script. And I create a very extensive scripts according with my build. And you can build every kind of application. If you can build your application use a command line, you can use DevOps because I have a command line here. If you are a .NET developer, Java developer, or PHP, whatever, what language that you can build, if you have a command line, if you don't have tasks here, for example, oh, I don't have tasks for build here. I'm using Ruby, I don't know. You can put a command line, or we have here a marketplace. Inside the Azure DevOps marketplace, I can find many kind of extensions for DevOps. For example, oh, I need to publish in AWS and Amazon Web Services. Okay, it's possible. Azure DevOps is not only for Azure, okay? Azure DevOps is a build tool. It's a DevOps tool that has a build feature that I can build every kind of software and publish it in every cloud or on-premise environment. And if you needed to use this, you can find many features inside this marketplace, and then you can write your own extensions too. And I can put many kinds of tasks inside this build, and I can build where this code is built. Where this code is built. I can choose here where my code is built. For example, I have here some hosted servers. Hosted servers that there are virtual machines provided by Microsoft inside the DevOps. And I can choose this machine. For example, I need to build an iOS application. I choose here a hosted macOS. Okay, it's very good because I don't need to have a macOS for build my application inside my company. I can use a hosted macOS, for example. For this sample that I showed before on my company, I use a hosted Android or a hosted Linux machine or a hosted Visual Studio 2017 or 2019 to build my Android app, for example, because I needed to put the Android SDK inside this machine. Or, for example, I have a local hosted build. oh, I needed to create a build inside my company because I needed to put some tasks on my pipeline that is not possible in cloud, for example, because there is a compliance or a security problem. You can install a server inside your company. For example, it's a Mac or a Linux or a Windows machine. You put an Azure DevOps agent inside this machine, and you can run your builds inside your company. It's possible too.
And
It's great.
you have one private pipeline and one hosted
Yes.
pipeline free.
Yes. Great. For this build, for example, I have a local agent here. Local, it's one server inside company that has 3 or more agents that can run builds. And
Yeah.
for other projects, I can run, for example, roasted builds. The Octanis is a sample of this. I'm using a roasted build here, and I can run everything on cloud. It's a roasted Visual Studio 2017. And then you can build everything in every environment. Okay? Great. My demo is about to push my code from GitHub, right, Vinicius?
Yeah.
Okay. And we have an organization, or I needed to create a new organization for this demo?
Please create one.
Oh, great. I will close this, and I return it to this here. And I will create a new project here, okay?
Okay.
Okay, create a
And
project here.
Azure
Okay.
is free until 5 users. Okay.
Yes.
To
Yes.
create a plan, repos, etc., and the pipelines. Uh, and you have example, you and for friends or for students, you can create an Azure DevOps organization. No problem.
Yeah.
You have 5 free basics license.
Yes. This is great because if you are a small company or a startup company, for example, you can use the DevOps for free.
Yeah.
5 user, everything is free. Okay. Okay, I will create a new project here, the MSP demo, and I'm choosing a Git repo. Okay. And I will create a project. It's very simple. It's very fast to create a repo here. I have here a GitHub. It's my GitHub. It's a public repo here, and I have a PHP demo here. I can choose this repo here. This is my repo. Okay, I will copy this URL here, and now I have a complete new project and organizations, and I have a new repo here. Okay, and I needed to import my code to I can build my code directly from GitHub, for example, and I
Yeah.
create a pipeline here. And when I create a new pipeline, for example, here, I can create a pipeline, and I use a class key editor here, and I put my repo here, and I authorize a GitHub here, for example, or put a token here. Okay, I will authorize it. Yes. And oh, I need to authorize here. Okay. And now I can choose my repos. I have many repos. Now Azure DevOps is looking for my GitHub repos. Okay. I authorized the Azure DevOps to see these repos, every repo that I have. And I put this repo here. And I choose a branch, for example, and I can click on continue. Now I can create a build in Azure DevOps that create a build from my GitHub repo. Okay, I will choose a ASP.NET here, for example. And now I need to choose tasks for my build. For example, what solution I can build. When I click here, I can see everything inside my GitHub repo, okay? And here I have my GitHub repo, and I have an ASP.NET, an ASP.NET Core, and PHP application here, okay? I will build this ASP.NET here, for example. I will choose the Workshop 0 solution. Okay, I have a build here. If I click in Save and Queue, I can build using, for example, a roasted build. I can choose another one if I need. By default, it's a roasted 2017. I save in queue. And if everything is okay and my code is okay, I have a build here. It's another approach for pipelines, okay? I don't have my code here, and I don't need to have my code here. But if you need, if you can, if you prefer migrate your code from GitHub to Azure Pipeline, it's okay too. I can import. I will go back here. I can choose import a repo here, and I can put my Git URL, and I can import my Git repo for this environment. And if I import my GitHub, I don't need to use GitHub anymore. I can use everything inside the Azure DevOps. It's free too, okay? And now I have my build currently running. I will import here my repo too, and I can pick up my URL here, and I put my URL here, and I create a repo, and the name of this repo is MVP.conf, okay? I will change this repo to MSP demo 2019, okay? And after this, I have a repo that is importing. My build is currently running here, okay? And I have two tasks running now. I have an import my repo. Okay, I have a successful import. And now I have inside my Azure DevOps a copy of current code from my GitHub. And I don't need to use GitHub app after this moment, but if you prefer, you can use. Okay, but I have a great build successful here, and it's the full build pipeline that I have created. I choose the ASP.NET template, and I simply appoint my solution, and I have a build, okay? And okay, I have a build, and where is my binaries? Where is my compiled files? And the name of this result for Azure DevOps is artifacts, okay? And I have here my artifact. For example, I have here artifact, I have here a drop folder, and inside this drop folder, I have some files that Visual Studio or Azure DevOps can use it to deploy my app, for example, to a server. And I have here an workshop 0 zip that content all of my binaries inside this build. And every time that I run a build, I have an artifact, okay? This is great because you have a copy of your binary every time that you run your build. It's very useful if you need to get, for example, a node build. You can choose your build history. I have a build history here. For example, I have only one here. But if I run this build many times, I have many versions of this build here. I can choose some of this and click the artifacts. I have a history here, and you can configure this history at the time of this build is here, okay? It's okay, Vinicius?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
On resume, you have many alternatives to create your pipeline from to your continuous integration and continuous deployment using Azure, AWS,
Yes.
or Google Cloud Platform to different languages on different platforms. Okay, if you create your product or project at this moment on first sprint, you must create your pipeline definition. No problem.
Yes.
It's very easy. You have many templates, different templates to attend your application and the organization. Okay?
If you prefer using a different approach for a build, for example, a YAML file, I have here a sample that is a YAML file to simply copy a PHP website, okay? YAML file, it's a script file that have many steps in many steps that you create some phases of this build. For example, I can create just many builds inside this file. And I have here a very simple sample that using an image to create an PHP file or PHP publish for a website. I have here a repo that is a PHP reload, and it's a pretty simple PHP hello world. And I can use this Azure pipeline to create a new build definition to this repo, for example. And if you choose, when you create a pipeline, the last time I choose the classic editor, but for now I can use, for example, Azure repo git YAML, and I can choose my repo here, and I can choose the kind of pipeline, for example, PHP, and I have here a sample of YAML file for PHP. That is the same build process. When I start here, I have the same process here, but I need to write my pipeline here. I don't have the box to these tasks, but it's okay if you have this YAML file, for example, in GitHub, that you are using another CI process, you can use this here. And now I have a process here. It's an error because I needed to configure, of course, this file. But you can run this kind of build, okay? And then resuming, I can put my code here. I can use my code inside with in another place, and I create a build pipeline here. But DevOps is not build. DevOps is release too. And what is a release? Imagine that you have builds. Okay, I have a build. This build creates my binaries, my artifacts. I have and then my website or my application or my mobile app. And I need to publish, for example, for my users. And how can I do this? You can do this using releases. Okay? And then I can create for now a new release pipeline. I have a build, now I have a release. In a release pipeline, I create many stages of this build. And then imagine that every time that you push your code inside to your repo, for example, I create a comment in GitHub or create a check-in in version control, I fire a build. I can start a new build. And when this build is ended, I need to copy this file to a test environment, for example. And I need to choose someone look for this stage and click, for example, oh, it's okay, this build is okay, and you can publish it to production environment.
Yeah.
And I create another stage and another stage, or for example, an QA and prod and env1 and env2 and many environments I can create inside this build. And when I create a pipeline, I need to choose what kind of application I'm using. For example, I'm using an Azure. I will deploy to Azure. I will deploy to Amazon. I will deploy to my on-premises environment. For example, I will choose this. I have many other deployment scripts here. And I have a marketplace tool that I can choose another templates, but I can choose Azure App Service deployment here. And for this deployment, that the name is, for example, test, the name of this stage. Then imagine that after I have a build, a successful build, I can put my artifacts or publish it to a test environment. And I need to look at this test environment, and if everything is okay, I promote to another environment, okay? And I will save this, and I will create another one here. And I have a stage 2, it's another app publish, and this is prod. production environment. Okay, and for this, I have here the start of these stages. This is like a road. Okay, I have a package that start here, that is my artifact, and after my package is here, I can move to this phase, and if everything is okay, I move to another phase or another phase or another, and you can put many phases here.
Yeah.
But to start, okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
all phase has post and pre and post improvements. It's
Yes,
very cool. And you can, example, I will my test environment is okay, and I will put on production environment, and I need to respective production approval. Many people or one person, no problem. You can choose these persons or these groups to approve my
yes,
application.
yes. And for this sample, I can choose the change the name MSP build pipeline.
Yeah,
Okay, it's a better name. And I need to choose an artifact. Okay, and I have here this MSP demo ASP.NET CI. This is my artifact. Okay, I can choose another artifact repos here. Okay, and when this pipeline start, I can start this manually, for example, or I can create a continuous deployment. If I put here enable continuous deployment, I can choose, for example, every time that I put a new code inside my repo, I start this build, and when this build finish, I start my stages. I can configure this automatically. It's very useful for a continuous deployment and continuous delivery here. I have continuous deployment and continuous integration. When I put my code inside my repo, I start a build, it's a continuous integration. And if this build is okay, if every stage is okay, I have a continuous deployment. This is a process here, okay? And I can set my schedule set here. I can turn on here, and for example, I can put a time, for example, I need to create a stage every day at 0 p.m., for example, 0 a.m. I can choose this too. Okay, and I have here, and Vinicius said something about this. I can put a before and after approves. For example, before trigger, after release. Okay, after this build occurs, start this, or a schedule, or a pull request deployment, or I need a pre-deployment approvals, and when or who is approved. I need a person here, for example, an user, and I choose, for example, Carlos approve this. And if I put a pre-approval here, after this build occurs, this person needs to approve to start this stage. Or I have a post-approval. In a post-approval, this build start and this stage start. For example, my code is put here, or I have a publishing test environment, and these people, this person receive an email that tell, you have a new stage to approve. Okay, and I click and I look and test, and it's okay, I approve. And if I approve this, the Azure pipeline move to another stage, and another and another and another. It's pretty simple, but you need to configure this. Okay, I will turn off here. And what tasks I can do here? And how can I publish my code? And when I click here, I have another tasks. And for example, I have here a deploy in Azure, but I can change, or I can choose another tasks. For example, I need to publish onto Amazon, or I need to push to a Linux server, for example, and I need to create some SSH command. I can put this comments here, okay? And I can connect, for example, my Azure DevOps, sorry, with an Azure subscription. It's a little bit different approach that Vinicius showed before. When Vinicius showed, I'm on Azure and create a DevOps environment. Now I'm a DevOps and I connect to an Azure environment or another cloud, for example. And I can connect here my resources and choose my subscriptions. And I will show you a real environment that is very useful to see a real environment running. And I have here, for example, I have here, here, the extra projects here. I have a build pipeline here. This is a .NET Core app, okay? It's a website. And I have another approach to a build pipeline that is very interesting to you. This is an ASP.NET Core build. I need to restore my code. I need to build my code. I need to publish my code using, for example, a release configuration that I can create some environment variables here to specify, for example, my configuration, my environment, and many things that I needed to put inside my code. And I publish my artifacts. It's every time or every build ends with a publish artifact, for example. Publish artifacts, write my artifact inside the Azure DevOps environment, okay? And I can choose, for example, variables or how this build will fire. And for example, if you are using a continuous integration, I can enable this here. And I choose my branch, for example, I have a branch dev or a branch version 1 here. And every time that you come to a code, you commit your code, this build starts. And after this build start, a release start and the stages start. And I have a complete continuous integration and a continuous deployment, okay? And after this, I have here a pipeline that I will show you and release here. And I have many releases. A great benefit of releases for me is I have here 4 releases, okay? I have a release that is on May. If I need to deploy again this release, I can click here and click on deploy or redeploy. Imagine that you have a problem in your application after deploy, for example. Oh, I have tests, I have manual tests, but I have a problem. Okay, you need to deploy the last version that is working. You can choose another pipeline and click redeploy, and everything works again. Okay, it's very useful. And in a release pipeline here, I will edit this release pipeline. It's a real release pipeline. I have here a job tasks that is an Azure deployment. Here I have my website connected. I have my resource group, my slot. And in a Azure application, I have an slot. Slot, it's I have one or more applications inside the same app service. I have, for example, I have my test application, my project application, my Q&A application inside the same app services using a slot. The slot is a complete separate application inside the app services. It's like many different applications inside the same website, okay? And for example, I needed to publish my test inside my test website. And I needed to publish my production to a production website. And then when I start my pipeline here, and I start the build here, and I publish this test, this publish is for a test website. And when I publish my code and run my build and start the first stage here, my test people inside company receive an email that say, oh, you have a new test inside your test environment to check. And this artifact was published to this test environment. It's a completely separate environment for my production. And if everything is okay, I can click OK and promote this test stage to a production stage. It's the same tasks, but a difference here that I don't have a slot. In my case here, I don't have any slot. For example, on the first, I have a test, and now I don't have a test. I have a production, that is my default slot. I don't have a slot. And when I start this pipeline, for example, I will start here and create a release here, and I'm using last build. I can choose this build here and create. And I have a build here, and I have a release running now, okay? And this is a queue waiting for the roasted build. And for now, the Azure DevOps is waiting, and now is in progress. And what is in progress? This step is executing every task that you put inside this stage. Oh, publish my file, copy my files, or change my database, or send an email to my ops people that notificate that it's okay. Everything that you need to do inside this stage, okay? And after publish this pipeline is stop and wait for the next stage. And for this next stage, I have here a pending approval. What's the pending approval? I have a people that need to see this and click here. Oh, it's okay. You can publish, or these people can click here and approve if I approve here or reject here. This website, for example, was published in my production environment. It's not very difficult, but you need to create with care and test sometimes to works okay. If you create this pipeline, you can start a build and you have your test or production environment published. It's very, very useful. Right, Vinicius?
Yes, perfect.
And I think that is it. You need
Rogério,
to
questions?
questions? Hello, Rogério?
Oh, hello guys.
Questions?
Other questions?
Uh, no, for now, no. Only,
Okay.
only, only question uh, about mobile apps only.
Okay.
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 That's it.
So, thank you, Carlos. Thank you,
Thank you.
Zeus.
Thank you.
Maybe others other questions can contact the masters.
Oh, no
Thank
problem.
you.
And awesome talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye guys.
Desconectado?